Well, I feel uncomfortable. Hello, seedlings. It's Madison or Dandelion. Today, we are doing another chatty video, another personal video, another video about mental health and my mental health and my mental health journey. So you can tell from the title of this video what it's about. Self-explanatory. But like I said, this is going to be very chatty, very casual. So if you're not into that, I'm sorry. Different videos coming soon. But April is Autism Awareness Month. So I felt like now is a great time to come forward and share my story and be honest and come out as autistic for my entire internet community. So that's what I'm doing. I'm autistic. Haven't told that to many people yet, so it feels kind of crazy to be saying it on the internet. So I've talked previously on my channel about my mental health and the things I've been diagnosed with a little bit. I talked about my OCD, my journey with OCD, my experience of OCD and how I got diagnosed and all those things. So if you want to check that out, that'll be linked below. I'll also link it above. But I've talked about my OCD quite a bit on my channel. I've also talked about my experience with intrusive thoughts on my channel quite a bit. So now with this video, I'm basically wanting to come forward and announce this to the world so it is known and to bring awareness to this issue that I was victim to for the majority of my life thus far. So hopefully other people who have not been diagnosed with autism and are autistic can find the help that they need and get the support that they deserve. So the beginning of my story is basically growing up, I had a lot of the signs of an autistic child. I had a speech impediment when I first started talking, and the way it kind of manifested is very silly, but I had an accent. I'm from upstate New York, and when I started finally talking, I had a Brooklyn accent. No one in my family or family friends or anyone I knew had a Brooklyn accent, so nobody really knew why I was speaking with this accent. But because I was a little girl, everybody thought it was cute. So everybody just kind of wrote it off as a cute, quirky thing. And my parents did consider putting me in speech therapy, but I ended up growing out of it before they could really put me in speech therapy. So it just kind of got pushed to the side. Nobody thought anything of it. And again, because I was a young girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, everybody just thought it was cute. And I also, as a child, didn't talk much. I would talk very minimally and only to people that I knew really well. So that was another indicator. I also had other developmental things that happened to me as a child that went on for much longer than they do for most children. So where most children would be done with this certain thing I'm thinking of when they were like 8, I was still doing it at age 11. And I'm not going to share what it is just because it's kind of embarrassing, but it has to do with your bodily functions and being able to tell when you have a bodily need, I guess. So you can kind of discern what I'm talking about from there. But I had a lot of little things like that developmentally that were just different for me than they were for other kids. I also, as a little baby, and again, everyone thought this was cute, but it was a sign of autism. I also, as a little baby, would kind of have this vacant expression on my face, and I wouldn't really necessarily mirror the facial expressions of the people taking care of me. You can even see it in the home videos we have. I'm just kind of like all the time, like I'm just like sensory overload. So once I got older, I was going to school and things, I had a lot of trouble socially. I kind of always drifted from friend group to friend group and never really felt like I fit in. The adults in my life, like the teachers I had at school, and even my extended family would often misinterpret my behavior and assume things about me that weren't true, which is a common autistic experience. I was very quiet. I was very to myself. But that didn't mean that I was like secretly thinking horrible things about everyone. It just meant I preferred not to speak and not to have attention put on me. I just didn't feel comfortable with any of it. And I had lots of experiences growing up where I would butt heads with authority just because I've always had, like a lot of autistic people, a very strong sense of justice and moral feelings, right and wrong. So when something was happening near me or around me, or I heard about it and I didn't agree with it or believe in what was going on, I still to this day do not have the ability to bite my tongue. If you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that I'm very passionate about the things I'm passionate about. And I have very strong morals and opinions, and I have a very strong sense of justice. So if a teacher did something that I felt was disrespectful to a student, I would say something. Like without even thinking about it, I would say something. I even got detention one time for talking back to a teacher, which I didn't realize I was talking back, but I guess to holistic people, that's talking back. Pointing out the obvious is talking back. But basically what happened was we were having a fire drill. This was my 8th grade year. So I was like, I'm so bad with timing and age, but I think like 12, 13, somewhere in there. And we had a fire drill. So it was fake, but one of the rules my school had, and I think this is the same for every school, but one of the rules my school had was no talking during a fire drill. So we had to be silent. All the students had to be silent. We exited the building and we were waiting in our lines to be told that we could re-enter the building. And the teacher the teacher of the class that I was in, she was talking to another teacher whose students were lined up next to ours. So they were talking. Even though we're not allowed to talk. And I remember turning to my friend at the time and saying, I guess the rules don't apply to teachers. And the teacher turned around and went, Madison, detention. I got detention. I also had a lot of experiences in elementary school where I would get accused of doing things that I didn't even know were going on. There was one time where I got called to the principal's office for bullying a kid that I didn't even know. Because they assumed I was in on it because I was this quiet little blonde girl. So they just kind of assumed that my silence meant that I must be like secretly plotting all these things, when in reality, I'm just quiet and autistic. So my whole life, I've been very misunderstood by the people around me, by the allistic people around me. And as I got older, that only really got worse. And also when I was a kid, I had like weird sensory things that I struggled with. Wind has always been a big struggle for me. When it's very windy, I panic and then I feel like I can't breathe. And when I was a kid, my mom used to have to carry me through the wind facing her with like my face in her shoulder because I would cry and panic that I couldn't breathe in the wind, even though everyone else around me was breathing just fine. It wasn't that windy. So like little things like that, that's just one small example. But yeah, I always struggled socially with making friends and connecting with other people. Never felt like I fit into one specific friend group. And often people would exclude me from things when they were like throwing a party or going out with their friend group because they thought I was disinterested in being their friend, when in reality I was just autistic and I didn't know how to connect with people or show people that I wanted to be their friend. So a lot as a kid, I would just get like excluded from things. People would throw a party or hang out with people and not invite me because they thought I just didn't have any interest. And that has followed me into adulthood for sure. I've been told by multiple people, like endless people, that when they first met me, they thought I was this way, or they thought I was like very aloof. Or I remember one time someone told me, it was like a college class, and at the end of the semester we had to do a group project, which, you know, is my worst nightmare. And we got paired up, and I was like, you know, having to talk with my group about what we were going to do. And the one girl in the group was like, "You haven't talked all semester. I thought you were like a disinterested, like bitchy girl, and you're so nice." Like, that was what she said to me. She was like, "Oh my God, you're so nice. Like, I didn't expect you to be nice." Like, she assumed because I was quiet that meant I was rude. And that happens for me like endlessly with people. And I'm not gonna go through like all the ways connecting with people is hard as an autistic person. But another thing that just quickly comes to mind is I get along much better with people who are either younger than me or older than me. I have a very hard time connecting with my own age group. I just have nothing in common with my age group. I have very strong special interests that I'm very interested in and passionate about. And that's kind of all I want to do, is just spend all my time on my special interests. You can see that religion and spirituality and paganism is one of my special interests from my channel. Film and television is another one of my special interests. And then I have smaller ones. I just know a lot of random facts about random things because I'll get very interested in a historical event or a tragic thing that happened, and I will learn every single thing that there is to know about it, like every single little thing. And like I touched on before, I'm very sensorily sensitive, so I'm not interested in like going to a rave or going to a party or drinking, really. When I drink, I have 2 drinks max, and then I'm like tapped out. That's all I can really have or want. I never want more than that, and I've never been interested in it. Like, I can remember some times in high school where people I was briefly friends with, because all my friends were brief, would try to pressure me into drinking with them, and it would never work because I had absolutely no desire to drink. Especially to drink in environments where other teenagers are drinking, where it's irresponsible and dangerous. I had no interest in that. So again, I just had nothing in common with my own age group at any point. You know, like, I am a 25-year-old that's dedicated years of her life to spiritual study. Gretel's here being cute. You know, I've always been an old soul, mature for my age. But when you add on top of that the special interests I have and my lack of interest in everything that young people usually are into, it makes things complicated when you're trying to make friends, especially since the people that I would be good friends with are also doing things alone the way I am. So yeah, making friends my whole life has been really hard, especially since adulthood, because, you know, once you're an adult, you no longer have those structured things like school and extracurricular activities where you inevitably meet people and hang out with people for extended periods of time. It's much more like, get out there and figure out how to make a friend. You know, making friends as an adult is hard enough for everyone, and then you add on top of that being autistic and it becomes impossible. Like, I know everything about Chernobyl. And that's just one of them. Or even like, you know, weird stuff that most people are like appalled by. Like, I know everything about the decomposition process of the human body. Like, I know a lot about every single serial killer that has ever been known to society. I just get really obsessed with certain things and certain topics, and I have to know everything about them. So my whole life, I've gotten along much better with like children and people who are like 10, 20 years older than me. It's always been very hard for me to connect with the people my age. And again, I think that's partially because I'm autistic, but it's also partially because of what I've been through in my life. If you've watched the documentary I made, which is linked down below, it's called Children of Disease. I grew up with 2 sick parents, so I think that matured me a lot also at a young age, but I was already much more mature than all the kids my age before that happened, and just very different because I'm autistic. And so, growing up, I always just thought I was weird. I just felt like lonely and weird. And I never understood why I was so different than everyone else around me. And then when I got older, I started, and I was an adult and I had to take care of myself. That's when I started to have like executive dysfunction issues with skipping meals, not getting hunger cues, and I would forget to eat. And I would end up in like situations where I would almost faint because I hadn't eaten all day, and it would be like 5 p.m. And I also just had a lot of other executive dysfunction things with just being able to get myself places on time when I needed to be there, or even getting myself to leave the house. Or I talked about this a lot in my OCD video because at the time I thought it was OCD, but now recently, during my autism assessment that I had earlier this year, I learned that those things are actually not OCD, they are autism. So I have autism and OCD, lucky me. So I, of course, still have OCD. I have compulsions that I feel the need to do. I have intrusive thoughts that are, if you don't this, then this. So OCD is still a very big part of my life. And again, you can hear more about my OCD story in that video I made. But I do this thing where I count everything. So I count my steps, I count heads in a room, I count bricks, I count wood panels on the floor, I count, I will just like count for no reason. I don't even need things to count. I'll just count in my head. Or like my need for even numbers and things like that is more of an autistic trait and not so much an OCD trait, because for me, when I'm counting things, I'm doing a stimming behavior that is, invisible to the naked eye. So basically growing up, I learned, and this is a very common experience for women who are autistic, I learned that it wasn't acceptable to stim in the way that I wanted to. So I started stimming in ways that no one could see, that no one would ever know I was doing. So a lot of the time when I meet new people, I'm counting because I'm stressed. And I'm stimming to calm myself. They'll interpret my quiet or my aloofness or my seeming distracted as me being aloof and me being disinterested in them, or me being a bitch, or me being an asshole, or me being they just interpret it in a negative way. But in reality, I'm stimming in my mind. Like there's kind of never a time where I'm not counting. I'm counting right now. There are doors on this side of the room that have windows, and I find myself counting them while I'm trying to focus on talking. So I learned recently that that's a stim and not a compulsion. I had been told previously that that was a compulsion. It's not. And how I know that it's not a compulsion is that I'm not doing it for a reason. I'm not having the thought, you better count those wood panels on the floor or the sidewalk blocks, because if you don't, then so-and-so's gonna die. Or if you don't, then your cat's gonna get out and never come back, or whatever. I'm just doing it because it calms me, because it soothes me, because I like it. I'm just doing it. And I do a lot with my hands also. Like I'll tap. I do a lot of like tapping, like counting taps, and then I'll do the next finger, and then I'll do the next finger, or I'll tap my finger on my leg. So I do a lot of tapping type things too. Basically, I've figured out that all my stims are very subtle, because my whole life I was trying to hide my stimming even from myself because I didn't know I was autistic. But as I got older, and I was taking care of myself and living on my own, it became much more apparent that there was something more going on than just OCD. From 18 to now, I'm now 25. I have been on and off in therapy with different therapists who do different methods, and I've been struggling to find the answers. So when I first started going to therapy, I was diagnosed with OCD, which is correct. Generalized anxiety disorder, which is like, whatever. What does that even mean? And then I was also diagnosed with, at the time, an eating disorder. Incorrect diagnosis. The person that I was seeing, the therapist I was seeing, diagnosed me with an eating disorder because I described to her having trouble remembering to eat. And I told her that there would be days where I wouldn't eat until like 4 or 5 p.m. So she took that as anorexic. Super unqualified now that I look back on it. But that was an incorrect diagnosis that I received. It's very common for autistic people who have never been diagnosed to be misdiagnosed with other things. So I kept kind of floating from therapist to therapist because they never helped me on the level that I was hoping they would. So I always felt very frustrated with therapy and with therapists. I even once, after describing how frustrated I was with my struggles with socializing and being out at events and social gatherings, I was crying one day talking to my then therapist about this issue I'm having and how I can't figure out how to just like go to a party and have a good time. Didn't seem like a big ask. Felt like the bar was pretty low and I couldn't do it. I could not. And she just like interrupted me and was like, "You're just sensitive." So invalidating and infuriating. So I had a lot of experiences like that where therapists misdiagnosed me or belittled my experience and told me I was just sensitive. And then during the pandemic, I saw online that people were saying, like I was diagnosed with autism at 29 or whatever. And I started watching those, and everything that they would talk about, I related to. Every single little thing. Cognitive style, the way people misunderstand them, struggling socially, sensory sensitivities, stimming. So I was like, this seems a little too on the nose to be a coincidence. I gotta figure out how to talk to somebody about this. So I found this woman, her name is Dr. Lee. She does adult ADHD assessments and adult autism assessments. So I contacted her about getting an autism assessment for myself. So basically I did 7 sessions with her, 7-hour-long sessions with her. And at the end of the 7th session, she said, "I feel confident in my ability to diagnose you formally with autism." So then she walked me through how the things I had said meet the criteria. She said I met every single one of the criteria. So you only need to meet like 75% of the criteria to be diagnosed with autism, and I met 100%. Overachiever. One thing that happened that really pushed me to get an autism assessment was over Thanksgiving this past year, I was in Florida with some family members. We had Thanksgiving in Florida. And one of my cousins is a boat captain. They have their own business and they have a boat. And we went out on the boat one day and I had said, I don't like boats. I don't really want to go. But again, the masking kicked in. And at the time, I didn't know I was autistic. So I just kind of was expecting too much of myself because I didn't think I had any reason to not expect the same amount from that allistic people expect from themselves, from myself. So didn't know that I should be making different choices to help myself. So I went on the boat even though I didn't want to, and I felt very nervous about it. And then basically what happened is slowly I started to become very overwhelmed and had a full meltdown. Like my absolute worst kind of meltdown. Like I've had, many a meltdown in my day. But this was definitely one of the worst ones. And basically what happened was we were on a small boat. It's a small boat. And it's all open air. So there was nowhere to get away from people or the wind. And like I said before, I've always really struggled with wind and breathing. So basically what happened was I was on this boat with like 4 or 5 other people. Everyone's having a good time except me, which is the story of my life. And I slowly started to feel sensorily overwhelmed. So first thing that happened was the boat was really loud. And then on top of that, they were, the people on the boat were wanting music. So there was also very loud music. And then on top of that, it was music I don't like. So I can get into loud music to a degree if it's music I like. But this was very loud music that I strongly dislike. And the boat was also loud. And then we started to go faster. So the boat started to drive faster and the wind picked up. So I started to panic and feel like I couldn't breathe. And like I said, there's nowhere on this boat to escape, to kind of have a little bit of a breather and kind of go inside. Glennie. And I also, it's funny because I'm a Pisces, so I'm a water sign. And I love water. Like I love to swim around and enjoy water, but obviously I like the ocean. Who doesn't like the ocean? The ocean is amazing and beautiful, but I don't like being on the ocean. Seems silly to me. I'm a land mammal. I don't want to be on the ocean. So I don't like boats for that reason also. If I can't see the shore, I'm freaking out. Even if I can see the shore, but it's very far away, I'm freaking out. Like, I don't like looking out and feeling trapped. So that also made me feel very panicky. And we're rocking pretty intensely. And once we start going fast, we're like breaking on the waves. It's bumpy. So it's bumpy, it's loud. The wind is making me panic and the wind is loud also. And I feel trapped. So basically all those things compounded. And for the first hour that we were on the boat, I tried to swallow it, like keep it in, show no one I was about to freak out, be calm. And then eventually it got so bad. There was a moment where I was like, I can't breathe. And it lasted like a full 10 seconds. And then I finally turned to my sister, who luckily is, my biggest supporter, and she leaped to help me. But I turned to my sister and I was like, I need him to slow down. Like talking about the person driving the boat. And she was like, what? And I was like, I need him to slow down. I'm panicking. I can't breathe. And she immediately was like, will you slow down, please? Like, blah, blah, blah. They slowed the boat down. I immediately am embarrassed as fuck. Like, so embarrassed. I'm embarrassed now talking about it. Because everyone was having such a good time. And then I'm in the corner, like, crying and freaking out and hyperventilating. And basically, we went slow for a while. Everyone was really annoying me by like fawning over me and not giving me space and asking me if I needed anything, which I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know what I need. I just need you to stop talking to me and leave me alone until I calm down. And I was like shaking. And I also was having some other stuff, like a lot of intrusive thoughts and panicked thoughts and just very dark thoughts. And that was an experience that made me very strongly feel like something is going on. There is something about me that I don't understand yet. And so that was the last real big push that got me to contact Dr. Lee for an assessment. And I've had, versions of that where I'm, at a party, or out at a club or at Pride even, and something happens where things build and build and build, and then I get overwhelmed and then I have a meltdown. Sometimes that will also lead to an anger attack and or a panic attack. Sometimes they're all mixed together. I talk about anger attacks a bit in my OCD video. If you want to learn about that, you can also look up what an anger attack is. But an anger attack is basically a panic attack, but instead of feeling panic, you feel anger. So I've had so many experiences in my life, especially as an adult, where I'm, at parties and I just have a meltdown because I'm not feeling safe or calm, or I get sensorily overwhelmed or socially overwhelmed. Yeah, or I've even I've had people come at me as a teenager for things that I now know were signs of autism. Like, I had this one friend who got so mad at me because I refused to drink with her. We were 16. I refused to drink with her, and she got so mad at me. And it's so funny because looking back, she said so many vicious and hateful things to me. And I didn't want to drink because I have autism. Like, I'm autistic, so drinking for me is not the same as drinking for you, being an holistic person. So, that's another reason why I wanted to get this out there, is I'm done being misunderstood. I'm done being thought that I'm one way when really I'm the exact opposite. That happened January, February of this year. I finished my autism assessment with her, and she diagnosed me as autistic. So since then, I've just been learning everything I can about autism, and about masking and being autistic and all these things. And I've also been learning a lot about the difference in men and women with autism, because men get identified as autistic much more easily than women, and that's for a lot of reasons. But yeah, it's just been a learning journey. And now I'm seeing a new therapist who's qualified to work with autistic people, and she's helping me kind of navigate all this new information and figure out what it means for me. And she's going to help me with socializing and sensory stuff, and just help me to have a more positive experience with people and in public. My YouTube channel is something that feels very comfortable and approachable to me, because while, yes, a lot of people would say, oh my God, I don't know how you talk so freely on the internet about yourself and about your struggles and all this stuff. And I don't feel that way about it. I'm alone right now in a room with a camera and my cat, one of my cats, and my sister's dog. Like, I'm at home. I'm comfortable. There's nobody in the room with me but me. So yes, I do post it on the internet, but that's like the easy part for me. Where I struggle is when there's another person in the room. So it would be a different story if you guys were physically in the room with me. I'd be more stressed. So for me, a YouTube channel is very comfortable because I'm just talking to a camera. That's very approachable to me. So while some people might think that that's like counterintuitive, that's just how it feels for me. It feels very easy to do because, like I said, I'm talking into a camera instead of talking to a person. Because, things like eye contact and facial expressions and social cues are difficult for me. I got diagnosed as autistic a few weeks before my 25th birthday. So I was just about to be 25. I spent the first quarter of my life roughly not knowing the most important thing there is to know about yourself. So now I'm on this journey of self-discovery, reparenting myself, and just trying to figure out how to move forward with this knowledge and with a box of tools that will help me to navigate the world more easily and in a way that's better for me. So yeah, it's been a wild journey. I'm very happy to finally know this about myself, because without the knowledge, I was struggling, just floundering, lost in the dark. And now I feel like I belong to a community that I hope to connect with in some kind of way. And I feel like, my whole life I've had this feeling of what is wrong with me? Like I said, I can't even go to a party and have a good time. And now that I know I'm autistic, I don't feel that way. I don't feel like there's something wrong with me. If anything, I feel like there's something right with me. I'm proud to be autistic, and I'm proud of the ways it manifests. I obviously, of course, still get frustrated with myself when I reach my social limit and I have to leave something early, or when I have to reject someone's invitation to something because it's too last minute, or when I, reach sensory overload and have a meltdown. Of course, I still get frustrated and angry and embarrassed and ashamed. But now I know why. And now I can plan to be prepared. So I'm not as likely to have a meltdown or reach a sensory place that's too far gone to deal with. Or like I used to so often, because I thought I was allistic, like all the allistic people around me, I used to so often bite off more than I could chew because I was expecting a level of behavior that I am not capable of. And there's nothing wrong with that. My brain is just different. I'm just neurologically wired different. I take in information differently, socially and sensorily, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I can't do all the things that other people are doing, other people my age are doing. I've always felt like there's always been a piece of me that feels like a loser because I don't want to go out and get blackout drunk on a Friday to have a good time. I want to stay in and watch an episode of my favorite show and play a video game and read a book and pet my cats and like that's what I want to do. And if I do want to go out, it's to a spiritual class or a spiritual event or a yoga class or some other exercise type thing. And of course I still want to go out and have fun, but I reach my limit much sooner than other people. And like I said, I can have 1-2 drinks max and then I'm done. So there's always been a piece of me that's just why can't you just be chill and just do the thing everyone tells you is fun, even though I don't find it fun. And now it's and it's sad that I had to wait for this label to feel this way, but now it's I have permission to like the things I like and dislike the things I dislike and reach my limit when I reach my limit and leave. And before, I didn't feel justified in giving myself that freedom because I didn't know I had an actual reason to need to do what I need. I felt like I needed express permission to do what I felt like I needed because I felt like there was no reason why I should already need to leave the party or not be having fun with the other people around me that I can see having fun. So yeah, it's been very eye-opening and upsetting in some ways because I cannot believe that I've had to wait until I was 25 to get diagnosed with what I have, what I've very obviously had my whole life. That's obviously very infuriating, but I'm happy that I have the knowledge now, better late than never. And now I can move forward empowered by this knowledge. And it doesn't have to keep holding me back. Or even cognitive style is a big part of being diagnosed as autistic. So for me, being autistic looks different for every autistic person. It's a spectrum, so everybody's got their little differences. But for me, all throughout school, I did the bare minimum, but I always did well. I didn't study. I would just roll up, take the test, and do pretty good. Never put much effort in. I was always bored in class because things would move too slowly for me and I would get frustrated with how slowly they were moving. Or if somebody asked a question that I felt was a silly question, then I would feel like we were wasting time and I would get really bored. So I've always really struggled in classroom settings, especially. Classrooms are just like my worst nightmare unless I'm the one teaching the class. I love classroom settings when I'm teaching, but if I'm the student, I really struggle. And like I said, working in a group is my worst nightmare, partially because I end up doing all the work, but also because I don't want to interact with other people. So like other cognitive style things, I'm very into routine and schedule and planning. My routine is everything for me. I can't just spur of the moment do something. If it's not planned in the day, it's not happening. So if something suddenly changes my plans or suddenly is going to take precedent over what I planned for the day, I have a very hard time adjusting to that. And I'll have, some degree of a meltdown. And, that's another thing that's come into play with socializing is it's been really hard to make friends when you can't make plans last minute, because I think this is especially a problem for Los Angeles, but people are very flaky in Los Angeles, and people will, respond to your text at the last minute or change the plan at the last minute. And I can't really cope with that. So that's been really hard. If there's been times where I meet somebody at an event and we do actually kind of connect in a certain way and we exchange information, and then they reach out to me day of to hang out. They'll say, I'm going to be here at this time if you want to come hang, or would you want to meet for, a drink later? And one, I don't really drink, so that's already hard. And then two, I can't make plans last minute. It's not only the routine and the schedule for me that keeps me functioning essentially, but it's also, for me, leaving the house is not as simple as just walking out the door like it is for a lot of holistic neurotypical people. If I'm going to go somewhere, I look it up on Google Maps. I look at the street view. I find where I'm going to park. I figure out if I'm going to have to pay for parking. I map the walk from where I'm going to have to park to where I have to walk to. I am very, my sister calls it directional insanity, but I guess it's a part of my autistic nature. I have a very hard time remembering which direction I came from or where I parked my car or how to get back to the room I was just in. So I have a very hard time navigating new spaces when I'm by myself. So that's another thing is if I look up a place and I see that I'm going to have to park 3 blocks away and it's a complicated walk to get where I'm going, I might decide not to go, even though I would really like to go, because I'm not confident in my ability to find my car after the thing is over. And that sounds really silly, but I'm not kidding. Like, I do not know which direction I came from or where a certain thing is. I'm really good at reading maps, but without a map, I'm screwed, like straight up screwed. So that's the other reason why last minute plans are really hard for me, because I have to be prepared to leave the house. And there's also a lot of compulsions for me that are involved with leaving the house, like checking the door a certain number of times. I have this whole thing I have to say to myself when I leave the house about, your house will still be here when you get home later. Your cats will be inside it. The door is closed and locked. You checked that it was closed and locked. Like, I literally say all these, like, as I'm driving away from my home, I say all these things out loud. So, leaving the house isn't easy to begin with. And then you drop on top of it that I'm meeting somebody new that I barely know. And I'm going to a place that I've never been to before. And then on top of that, they're contacting me last minute to make the plan. I have to make plans like 2-3 days in advance. I cannot make a plan day of. Like when when people say, like, oh, what's the most spontaneous thing you've ever done? And they're like, oh, I bought a same day ticket to Thailand and I backpacked around Thailand for 2 weeks. That sounds like my worst nightmare. How about instead we plan a trip to Thailand for a year from now and we plan every day. And even if we're going to have a rest day, that's in the plan, to have a rest unplanned day. That's the plan. So it's just, it feels like a minefield a lot of the time trying to connect with people and meet people and sustain a friendship. And also, like I said, since I was a kid, I've never been much of a talker. So, and I'm very independent, very independent. And again, that's partially because of how I was raised, but it's also because of my being autistic. So people often take my silence for, oh, she doesn't want to be my friend. When in reality, I just don't have anything to say. The love languages, mine is very strongly quality time and nothing else. If I like you, I want to spend time with you. That's as simple as it is. And I want to spend time with you in environments that make me feel comfortable and safe. So I want you to come to my place. I want to come to your place. I want to just do low key things that are very, sensorily gentle. I'll go to a concert where I have a seat, or I'll, go to the symphony or go to see a dance performance or the theater or a play, and I'll invite you to come with me, or, and I love doing a lot of things by myself, which is such a problem for meeting people, but that's what I like. I'm not bored or lonely when I'm with me. I talk to myself a lot and I think I'm fun. I like the things I'm into, so I enjoy being with myself. So, I love to go to the movies by myself. That's one of my favorite things. You don't talk to people at the movies anyway, so it's a great thing to do by yourself. I go on runs. I love that I'm by myself on my runs. It feels like my me time, Yeah, so there's just a lot of things about me that I have only recently learned are autism. So I just wanted to make this video to kind of share this with you guys so it's out there and I don't have to keep kind of tiptoeing around it. I recently went on a trip in February and I was going to vlog it, but as I was starting to vlog it, and this was right after, literally a week after I got my diagnosis from Dr. Lee. So I was freshly diagnosed as autistic. And on the trip, I was trying to vlog it, and it just kept inevitably coming up that I had something to say about being autistic. And so it kind of made me unable to vlog. So I ended up not vlogging the trip, but it really made me mad because I felt like if I was already out to everyone as autistic, then I could be being honest in this vlog and talking about the sensory problems I'm having while on vacation and the difficulties I'm having as an autistic person away from my home and my routine and all these things. So that's why I wanted to get this out there as soon as possible. And April, Autism Awareness Month, felt like a good time to do it because I don't want to have to keep editing myself and not bring up an autistic struggle I'm having or whatever's going on for me. I want to be able to be fully honest and myself and authentic with you guys. And knowing this new information about myself, I needed to get it out there as soon as possible. There's also a lot of people in my life that I'm hoping will look at this video, if only briefly, and realize that they were wrong about their preconceived notions of me and their perception of me because I'm autistic. And no one ever thought I was autistic because of how I look. So yeah, it's going to be an ongoing journey. Obviously, I'm a baby autistic, learning about all this stuff, and I'm reading several books about it right now. So now I'm basically just on a journey to learn more about myself, learn how to help myself to thrive socially and in public and just with myself and feel my best and do my best. And, I'm learning a lot about masking and trying to learn how to kind of let that down when it's safe and when it's a good idea to let that mask down. Yeah, and masking has been a big part of, and still is, masking is a big part of what I'm working on now because in the past, masking has gotten me into some nasty situations with people where people are treating me badly because I'm masking. So I'm basically just on autopilot, not even aware of what's going on with the people I'm with because I'm just kind of trying to fit in. So masking is something that I'm working on letting go for my own benefit. Masking, of course, is still a good form of protection when you're an autistic person and you're not wanting everyone to know that you're autistic for whatever reason because you don't feel safe in the environment you're in or the people you're with. So learning a lot about masking and when to mask, when not to mask. So yeah, that's my autistic spiel. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that this helps some people feel seen and heard. And if you're autistic, comment down below so we can connect. I'm really wanting to form some kind of connection with the autistic community, especially autistic women. Yeah, I have nothing else to say, but I also feel like I have a lot to say. But yeah, maybe I could talk more about autism and my experience as an autistic person, especially as an undiagnosed autistic person, in future videos if that's of interest to you guys. So if that interests you, if you want me to talk more about autism and things, then comment that down below. So if you clicked on this video, thank you for listening to my watered down story, very brief version of my story. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed watching it and you got something good out of it, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my future videos. You can also become a member of my channel to get access to exclusive perks if that interests you. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. And it's funny because even as I'm making this video, I feel the need to justify myself. Like, I feel the need to explain to you guys every little thing about me that makes me autistic, when I don't need to do that, and also that would take all day.